All right, so it's field trip time. Okay, so it's field trip time. That's what I call me sitting in my bathroom right now. Because we're gonna talk about something very important, which is probably the biggest thing on most of your minds, which is how do I find a company to invest in the first place? So when I help women learn how to stock trade, this is the very first thing. They say, you know what, I don't know anything about companies. I don't know who to invest in. I don't even know who's good. But I'm gonna tell you something honestly. You know good companies because you are a consumer, and women are bigger consumers than even men are, as we've discussed before. So you know companies more than you think you do. So I'm in my bathroom because we're gonna look at some companies that I use, and I want you to do the same thing. So I'm just gonna grab a piece of paper and a pen, and I'm just gonna start looking at things that I use all the time, things that I love, companies that I already believe in because I back them with my dollar. And we're just gonna make a list of all of those. First of all, this is my phone. It is an iPhone. So Apple's gonna be very first on my list because I believe in Apple. So we're gonna look those up. This is a list of companies that you already believe in that you can look up. You don't have to worry about whether they have good financials yet or not. The only thing you have to worry about is, do you use them? Do you love them? And if you're anything like me, you're probably pretty brand loyal by this time in your life. So let's look at some things that I use regularly. So I love Aveeno face scrub. And if you look at the back here, you can see it is distributed by Johnson & Johnson. Pretty easy there. So I'm gonna write that on my list. This is Listerine mouthwash, also Johnson & Johnson. This is Olay Regenerist cream. And in the back it says it's done by Procter & Gamble. So I'm gonna write Procter & Gamble down. This, I love Bath & Body Works soap. That's on my counter, so I'm gonna write it down. Bath & Body Works. And you don't even have to know the company name at this point. You can just write down Bath & Body Works. For instance, this is Bath & Body Works. It's actually sold by L Brands, and it may sound familiar because they also own Victoria's Secret. So I'm gonna write this down because it's on my counter. Now, CoverGirl, I use this mascara religiously. CoverGirl is owned by Procter & Gamble. Now, I am a runner. I've run a couple marathons. I swear by Saucony shoes. So I'm gonna write Saucony down because it's a company that I'm really loyal to, and these are super beat up. It might be time for some new ones. So other things you might think about is, what do I wear when I'm getting dressed in the morning? So the first thing I do is work out. I really like Lululemon. I've talked about them before. I really like their clothes. They're really cute. My husband really loves Under Armour, so I'm gonna write that down too. So your bathroom is a really good place to start. From there you can branch out. You can say, you know what, I went on vacation last year. I stayed at the Hyatt Hotel and I really liked it. Or I stayed at the Hilton. Or, you know, when I fly, I really like to fly Delta. So you can kind of branch out to companies that you're already familiar with. Something else you might think about is, who do I work for? Who does my sister work for? Who does my brother work for? Where do I like to shop? Now, my family loves Target. When my kids want to do something in the evenings, I'll say, hey, what do you guys want to do tonight? And they'll say, we really want to go wander around Target. And you know, it's an interesting time in your life when my interests are the same as my kids' interests, because I'm like, yeah, let's go wander Target. I'm sure I'm not alone in that. So you may shop at Target, you may shop at Walmart. So consider, where do I shop? What brands do I already use that I really like? When I do laundry, I use Tide detergent because I think it gets my clothes the cleanest. So I look at the back and say, oh yeah, that's owned by Procter & Gamble. So that's another Procter & Gamble product that I use and love. Okay, so you're gonna end up with a list. And from here, you're gonna take the products that you wrote down. Maybe you just wrote down Aveeno because you didn't know it was distributed by Johnson & Johnson, which is totally fine. So you're gonna look up the products that you love and you're gonna say, hey, is Aveeno publicly traded? And it might say, yes, it is, under the ticker Johnson & Johnson. So you're just gonna look up you're gonna find the parent companies essentially, and you are going to write them down. So then you'll have a new list that's not Bath & Body Works, but L Brands, not Maybelline, but Estee Lauder. So you're gonna find the parent companies, if they're publicly traded or not. For instance, you may really like a company. So all the ones I displayed here are publicly traded, but you may find that you have a company that you really like that isn't publicly traded. I buy a lot of clothes at H&M, H&M isn't publicly traded, so I could just cross it off my list. So don't get discouraged if you like a lot of products that aren't publicly traded. It may just be a list to look forward to in the future. So keep track of things that you like. Think outside the box. Sometimes small brand clothing companies are publicly traded, and then just come up with your list. So I'm gonna have you take this list, I'm gonna have you bring it to the computer, and then I'm gonna show you how to figure out if it's a good company to invest in.
All right, so now that we have our list all ready to go, we're actually going to come into Webull online. So I'm logged into my Webull account, and you're going to start over here where it says stocks. So you can see right here. And this is going to bring up our stocks, and we can actually see the financials from here. So don't get worried about all of this other stuff. We're just going to keep an eye on what we want. So I already put everything that we discussed into my watch list so that we can just look at these pretty quickly. So the first thing on my list was Apple. So the way I like to look at a company's financials is I like to come up here to the monthly view. So you can do quarterly, you can do yearly, which doesn't give you as much information. You can do the last 15 minutes, you can do an hour. I like to look at a monthly view, and then I like to take my mouse and just scroll it out until I'm looking at the last 5 years of a company. So the last 5 years is going to take us to 2015. So I like to have this view on my screen. So you can see 2015 here, 2020 here. I feel like the last 5 years of a company is going to give you a really good indication of what it's going to do in the next 5 years. So I have Apple up on my screen right now. And you can see from 2015, it went from $118 to the beginning of 2020, it was $295. So right in there. So over the last 5 years, it's grown quite a bit. If you look at Apple from its inception, it's grown a ton. You can see here this dip after the beginning of the year, and this is specifically from the coronavirus. So you can actually go to a daily view if you want to see what's happened to it since the beginning of 2020. You can kind of see that it's taken it down quite a bit. So now that we're looking at our monthly view. So I will look at Apple and I'll say, okay, this company has really grown over the last 5 years. It's made a lot of money. It's a company that I believe in. So this would be a company that I might look for a good entry opportunity for. So I'm going to just put a check mark next to that on my list, or even better, you can actually take it, you can put this little star right here and say add to my watch list and put it on my watch list. We also talked about in another video, you can actually even right click and you can say add to my watch list and put it in that way as well. Whatever way you choose to do it, you can say, hey, Apple's something that I want to keep an eye on. Now the next company we talked about was Procter & Gamble. So I'm going to click on that one next. You can see from 2015 to 2020, it had a great uptrend. You can see that line up. Again, this is from the beginning of the year, from the coronavirus stuff that's going on. And you can see it's got a little bit of an uptick now. So the last 5 years, it's grown. So Procter & Gamble is one that I want to look for a good entry point, so I can add it to my watch list. Now we're going to talk about entry points a little bit later on, and they're a little bit tricky, but I'm going to kind of break down my process for finding an entry point. So for now, we just want to find companies that are interesting to us that we want to keep an eye on. So add it to your watch list. The next one on the list was Johnson & Johnson. Johnson & Johnson and Procter & Gamble are both responsible for a ton of products. So clicking into this one from 2015 to 2020, it did grow. You can see its chart is a little bit more choppy than Procter & Gamble, but overall in the last 5 years, it has grown. Now, something that might make me a little bit more nervous about Procter & Gamble is from 2015 to 2018, it grew quite a bit. But then from 2018 to 2020, it's had a lot of what I call the cliffs of despair. So it's gone up and down quite a bit. So in the last couple years, it really hasn't made that much money. So this one is probably, I might watch it, but I might not. It's one that, you know, with this coronavirus drop, if it dropped down low enough, I might invest in it, but it's not as pretty of a chart as Procter & Gamble. We're going to go back to Procter & Gamble and you can see that chart, how it had a little bit of a dip, and then so it's not quite as pretty. So You can say, well, over 5 years it gained money, but the last couple of years it's had a little bit of issues, and I wonder why. So I want to know why it's had some issues the last couple of years. So that may be one that I might leave off my watch list for now, unless it got low enough in price once again. So next, let's look at Lululemon. I love Lululemon athletic wear. I've done blog posts about Lululemon. They're a solid company. They're also celebrity backed, and not because they're paid to endorse them. Celebrities wear Lululemon, which may or may not be a good reason to buy a product, but people do. So you can look from the last 5 years that it has grown a tremendous amount. And you can see it's done it mostly in the last couple of years. It's hit some really good strides, and it has dropped again. You're going to see this drop at the beginning of the year due to coronavirus on pretty much anything you look at. But over the last 5 years, it has grown quite a bit. So Lululemon is one that I am always keeping my eye on. Now, my husband really likes Under Armour, so I'm going to pull up Under Armour. And you can actually see that in the past 5 years, from 2015 to now, Under Armour has not done well. This is not what we want to see. This is not a company that I personally would be very excited about investing in, unless for some reason I thought, you know what, Under Armour's coming back in a big way, and it's, right now it's pretty cheap at only $8.67 a share. But for me, this isn't a company I'd be super excited about. You can see it used to do quite well if you invested back here, but it is just not that is a pretty big drop. So that's not a company I personally would be excited about. And all you have to go on are the charts. But if you happen to know, you know what, they're coming out with a great line, again, that's something you might consider. So this personally would not be on my watch list. Next, we're going to look at Target. I told you I like to go shopping with my kids in Target, and we like to wander the aisles together. And the last 5 years, Target has grown. It had a dip here in 2017, but overall in the last 5 years, it's done quite well. Again, we see this drop, but over the last 5 years, I would say this is a pretty solid upward trend. If you invested in 2015 at $66, at its height, it was at $130.24. So that is quite a big jump. Now let's say you're a Walmart shopper, and that's where you like to go. So you look at 2015 to 2020, again, it went up. And Walmart is actually up now amid the coronavirus stuff, which is quite interesting. But you can see that it has had an upward trend. It hasn't gained as much as some of the other companies, but it has gone up consistently over the last 5 years. If you shop at Walmart and this chart looks great, you can add it to your watch list. Now, Saucony, I talked about my beat up running shoes. It is owned by Wolverine Worldwide. I thought I added it, but if you didn't, you can come up here and you just type in Wolverine, and right up here. So L Brands also owns Victoria's Secret. And you can see over the last 5 years, some of you may know that Victoria's Secret has hit and is actually for sale. So this brand has not done really well. Victoria's Secret has not handled its PR very well in the last couple of years, in my opinion. So you can see this is on the decline. So this is not a company that would personally interest me. Keep an eye out for what you use and what you already love, and then just look at the chart. You can say, oh, you know what? I actually love Under Armour clothes. And you can look at the chart and say, oh, wait, but maybe that's not the best investment, and that's totally fine. But Lululemon, I also like their clothes, and it seems to be a little bit better company right now. So just again, look at what you use and what you already love, and try to look at the charts and make a prediction on what it's going to do in the future, because that's all stock trading is you're looking at companies that you believe will continue to go up.